But yes, in the short term, I advocate mostly for modest social democratic proposals. Violence happening on October 7, and they clip the part where I say, even if sexual violence did happen, that doesn't change the dynamic of genocide for me at all. I think it's like completely inappropriate to say that it's, that genocide is permissible because sexual violence occurred. And they clip the part where I say, even if sexual or rape doesn't change the dynamic for me about what's going on at all, to make it seem like I'm saying, one, no rapes happen, and two, that I don't care if rapes happen. It's stuff like that. It's riddled with things like that, and claiming that I'm calling like all Jews inbred or whatever, and I'm talking about specifically the fucking terrorist group, like the JDL terrorist group, destroying aid that was going into Gaza. And then I describe the context of the situation where I'm like, this is like, if I look at the longer clip from that same time frame, and it's like 30 seconds prior, I'm literally describing like, this is a right-wing settler terrorist group comprised of a bunch of inbred fucking psychos that are going in to destroy aid going into Gaza. And then he cuts that part to be like, oh, he's calling all Jewish people inbred. It's stuff like that for the most part. That's basic stuff. If you say anything even remotely pro-Palestinian, you're going to get attacked that way all the time on the internet. I'm sure you guys live stream a lot, so I'm sure you're very familiar with the ways in which sometimes people clip you out of context. But the thing I took offense to, for the most part, was like the liberal Zionist Hasbara that took place, where he said a bunch of like incredibly ahistorical claims, like that were, I think, very insensitive and also demonstrably untrue. Saying that 1 million Jews were displaced from the surrounding Arab regions, like expelled forcibly. And he called the Nakba, like the War of Independence or something along those lines. I can't remember exactly what through the process of 75 years of occupation, death, and destruction. It's all things like that that I consider to be ahistoric. I mean, not that I consider it, it's just ahistorical and completely devoid of nuance. And I think it serves the purpose of defending Israel from a more progressive standpoint. It's not something I'm unfamiliar with. I've heard it a million times over. It's not like as egregious as being like, oh, I hope your beeper is, on notice or whatever. Like, I hope Israel kills you. It's not like that. But it's another way to, I guess, tackle the issue while consistently presenting Palestinians as like anti-Semitic terrorists across the board while saying you're pro-Palestinian.
Yeah, I'll say this. So I'm also pro-Palestinian, and
you're a Zoomer.
You are infinitely like more educated and invested in Israel and Palestine than I am. I'm more. I understand the basics, and I just very vehemently disagree with ethnic cleansing, genocide, and unwarranted human death. That's as far as my stance goes. Yeah. And that's why I'm pro-Palestine. But I will say, like, I've had conversations with Zionists and individuals that are pro-Israeli on live, and next thing you know, just because I don't necessarily support the existence of an ethno-state that wants to eradicate the existence of surrounding Arabs and Arab nations, like, oh, all of a sudden I hate all Jewish people. Or because I think that Zionism is bad because it's predicated on, colonialism and imperialism, all of a sudden it's anti-Semitic. So I understand how, one could posture a pro-Palestinian view to be anti-Semitic to kind of just diminish the value and support of a human cause. Yeah. But I don't know the specifics and the intricacies at all. But I want to learn more, and I want to learn more about you. I do. I really do. I want to finish that content, Nuke. I want to get your takes. From you said you reacted to it on stream. I'll probably do that.
No, I to be fair, I didn't react to the thing in its entirety. And I might in the future, because I was thinking about maybe bringing in some historians to also talk about it regardless. Because like at the end of the day, it is, it's important to address a lot of the false claims being made. Not necessarily about me being like pro terror or whatever. That I hear that all the fucking time. That doesn't mean anything. Congressman Richie Torres wrote a letter to Twitch back in the day, like I think a week before his election. He was on the ballot, demanding that I get banned because I was like the arch pro terrorist supporter. Richie Torres, of course, is a a massive Israel advocate from one of the poorest districts in the country, and spends most of his time talking about Israel instead of his own constituents. But I get attacked by the ADL and stuff like that. All that stuff is ultimately meaningless. But I do care about the history of it, and I want to make sure that people are not arch debate lords. You can take me to task on this issue if you want.
Yeah,
I've
no,
seen
I
a lot of your content.
I'll call you out, okay? And I mean that. I will.
Yeah.
I will. I see some fuck shit, I'll do it.
Let me tell you guys something, by the way. As someone who has also debated and still every now and then engages in debate, I will say as a content creator who's been doing this for a very long time, I love what you guys are doing. I will urge you to, consistently end up debating and stuff, but like, I warn against the toxicity that might create for you. And it's good to diversify. It's good to diversify your content in general, and like do React content, more fun stuff, things of that nature, more educational content, because there are a lot of people who enjoy the blood sport of it all, but they don't necessarily care about the truth. They just want to see dunks. And
sorry, Hasan, my bad. I don't mean to interrupt you, bro. Dean Harry's in the box.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead and continue.
My bad.
yeah. So basically what I'm saying is, like, as someone who did a lot of debate initially, I think that I noticed, at least, like, there's a point where it turns into you basically cultivate a community. I warn against this. You basically cultivate a community of people that just like want slam dunks. Like, I have an ideological purpose, and it's not something that I hide. I've even openly admitted to. I call myself a propagandist on Piers Morgan's show, which everyone always points to. What do you mean you're a propagandist? Like, I don't like. I use propaganda in the old terminology for it. I had a show on the Young Turks back in the day called agitative propaganda as well, where my goal is to try to instill class consciousness in the American working class, because I feel like that is what's most lacking from our political discourse in general. So, like, I have an ideological goal. I want Americans to recognize that it's not your neighbors that are fucking you over. It's not undocumented migrants. It's not trans people. It's not DEI. And these things are simply purposeful distractions that reactionary forces utilize while they fucking rob you blind with austerity and an overall refusal to improve your material conditions, whether that is the Republican Party in many circumstances, or even in other instances, the Democratic Party that refuses to push the needle in the direction of necessary change. So for that purpose, I'm saying I realized that, like, simply doing debates alone was not cutting it, because I wanted I wanted to create a community that was engaged, listening, learning, and also seeking out information on their own. But more importantly, that they were also engaging in activism, organizing, whether that be community organizing or labor organizing. And I think that there's more to do. And it'll create a more sustainable career for you as well, in general, for all of you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, at least when it comes to my approach, like, I agree, like, the left as a whole, or like progressives, and like in general, need a multifaceted approach in terms of like the different content people like go towards. And I also think that, like, for certain creators, there's going to be certain skill sets that you're going to have where you're going to be able to do a certain set of content very consistently, a lot more if you're interested in it, if you like doing it, and if you can bring the energy every single time. And as it relates to like things like debates, I think that like people like me and Dean, we have a lot more of a pressure and push internally to engage in that particular type of activism and work comparative to other forms, because it comes more naturally to us, or it's some like way we can explain things a little bit more in depth. And one thing I have an issue with in terms of content that's like, reaction based or other stuff like that, is that there's no back and forth direct sort of response from people. So I think that oftentimes it can create more echo chambers, like naturally, like when you engage in like reaction based content. So I actually think myself that, like, of course there's going to be people who are just trying to look for slam dunks in terms of debate type content that's live debates. But I mean, I think that would be true for short form content, reaction based content, or any other form of content that would exist on social media. And I think actually is alleviated more when we engage in live debates, because it's like more in person, real. You can humanize people more because you're engaging in direct conversation. That's at least how I view it. But like, I think that, yeah, we should engage in other content.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I think there's definitely a space for debating, for sure. I'm not discounting that at all. I'm just saying that it's good to diversify your content as well. On top of that, for sustainability in general, and also on top of that, to create a broader community that has more interest, because debates do sometimes have a tendency to just like narrow your focus a little too much. That's all I'm saying. But
I agree with that.
You guys are doing great. Don't get me wrong. You guys are killing it.
Yeah. I guess the way I look at it is, like the only reason like I now have this career where I do like debates for 4 hours a day was because like 2.5 years ago I decided to load up TikTok at 3 a.m. and join some random person's live and try to convince them that they were wrong and I was right. And then it just kind of like snowballed into what it is now. And kind of like what Parker said, I think that if we want to build this literal fucking machine to get as many people as possible to be more and more progressive, right, and less bigoted, less on the right, further to the left, it requires a very multifaceted approach with a functioning ecosystem of different people that are doing different things. And like when I've had people come up on my live before and been like, "Oh, Dean, you suck. You're just a rage baiter. You do reactionary content that does no good." I guess like on one hand, it's like I should do more for interests to society as well as self-interests. But then on the other hand, it's like, I'm good at this. I'm going to focus on what I'm good at. And there's other individuals that will focus on what they're good at. But, hopefully, I mean, if this turns into something long-term, I'll be good at multiple things,
Yeah. Look, I'm dog shit at gaming. I'm dog shit at gaming. I still play video games on a stream because I know that it like brings in a different audience as well. In my line of work, I've realized, especially the position that I'm advocating for, is one that either Americans especially are either completely oblivious to and have never heard of it, or are inherently antagonistic to. So charitability is the most important thing. And I think like collaborations and people seeing me in a different light and not just simply clips, because that's just the most common way that people learn about other content creators, is the best way forward. But that's just for me. I'm not saying it's for all of you guys as well. I'm just sharing what I've seen through my experience.
Yeah, of course, man. I feel like I've been talking a lot. Does anybody else want to hop in here?
Yeah, who wants to debate me? Harry, you go.
Harry, go ahead.
Hassan,
Hassan,
what do I have to say,
Hassan,
man?
one time on stream, well, you referenced Harry as like the DNC shill, and then you referenced me as the car guy. So at least Harry gets a name.
Hassan, do you still think I'm a shill?
I don't know. I haven't seen any of your new stuff, so I don't know.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you'd see Harry as a shill. Yeah.
Let me ask you. No. This is important. What do you think about Hakeem Jeffries' performance so far?
You mean as the minority leader, just generally the past couple of years, or since Trump has gotten into office?
Since Trump, since Trump's coming.
Pretty mediocre. Mediocre.
All right. That's good.
I mean, it's been too weak. I don't like how he's not criticized like Eric Adams.
Yeah.
I think that's fucking insane. I know he's like taking the position of, we have to wait and see if the charges are dismissed. I think that's bullshit. I don't think he's been hard enough on Trump. I really don't like how like Jerry Connolly is leading the Judiciary Committee and not AOC. I think we've been making like some very simple mistakes. So.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's
Hassan, it is possible to be nuanced. Like the moderate Democrats are too moderate, and the progressive Democrats are too progressive, and you could just be somewhere in the middle.
I have a question too.
What's up?
Okay. And this is because I feel like I've been getting more radical in my views on this topic. But the main critique that I've seen from your supporters, and I think even you called me way too libbed out for this when you were reacting to my Jubilee episode.
I think it was the immigration stuff, maybe.
Immigration policy. Yes, I wanted to ask you about that. So, in accordance with the stance that I either showed on the Jubilee episode, or I could just kind of reiterate my thoughts on immigration now, I'd love for you to tell me why I'm wrong.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. First, we'll start with border policy. So, border policy, what I want in my best version of the world is as many ports of entry that operate as efficiently and as quickly as possible with screening processes that specifically expel and do not allow people into the country that have committed violent crimes.
Fair.
And then for undocumented migrants that are already in America, for undocumented migrants that have committed violent crimes, to deport them. And for undocumented migrants that have not committed violent crimes, to offer them a pathway to residency or citizenship.
Sorry to cut you off. You don't. Oh, okay. So you don't want to deport undocumented migrants that haven't committed crimes, but undocumented migrants that have committed crimes, you want to deport them.
Specifically violent crimes, yeah.
No, specifically
W.
violent.
Dean.
Okay. So I don't disagree with anything that you just said at all. I don't think we're in disagreement in terms of, well, I guess the only thing that I would disagree with is if an undocumented migrant has caused a violent crime, I would want the American court system to handle it and actually imprison that person rather than allowing them to be free. Like, I don't want rapists to get a trip back home. You know what I mean? And then just be like, all right.
You know what? That's a good point. You know, if we would do like the deportation of undocumented migrants that have committed violent crimes, it'd be conditional given where they're deported would be where they land in a jail cell. Or
like, I mean, or I would rather house them in the American carceral structure to ensure that they are actually serving, like to ensure that they're just served. Here's a good debate tactic.
That's actually a great argument. I think it's a great point.
Ask Republicans every time they say, "Oh, I want undocumented migrants that have caused crimes to be deported." Ask them, why do you want rapists to roam free if they fucking did a rape? Why do you not? Let's say an undocumented migrant is like done a heinous.
It's cooking with that one. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. Why have I never thought of that? What the fuck?
I haven't thought about that either.
You don't want punishment. You don't want crimes to be punished. That's weird. So that's a nice little debate tactic there. But it is something that I also believe. I want amnesty for all undocumented immigrants that are living on U.S. soil right now, as long as they have not committed like any sort of heinous violent crime. But even when we entertain the notion that like we're deporting violent criminals or the Trump administration is like going after violent criminals, I think you guys all know that that's not the case.
No.
It's not like the previous administration was like, "Oh, are you Guatemalan and you did a rape? Okay, sorry, we can't arrest you." Like, that's so fucking stupid. Like, no, of course, being arrested and being prosecuted, right? So that notion is like that premise that they operate off of is like a faulty hidden premise. The idea that like the Biden administration was not adequately targeting people that have done crimes regardless of their immigration status. And that's precisely the reason why I believe it was the Associated Press that came out with initial reporting that the majority of the undocumented migrants that have been deported so far, some of which aren't even undocumented, by the way, they are deporting documented non-citizens and undocumented non-citizens. And the majority of them had not committed any crimes. And a big chunk of those who had actually done crimes had done shit like trespassing. You know what I mean? Or obstructing justice, like ridiculous, erroneous claims that normally would be thrown out under any other circumstance. And
I was under the impression that majority of individuals that they've deported so far were individuals that have been documented as committing a crime or a violent crime. But the reason why that's the case is not because they wanted to only or focus on the deportation of undocumented migrants who have committed crimes, but rather those were just the easiest undocumented migrants.
Oh, are you talking about? Yeah, the ones that are in the prison system already. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and like the misconstruction from Trump supporters, creating a narrative that because for the first week 800 out of 1,000 deportations were from individuals
Yeah,
that were
no,
already in the prison system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They deported people that were already in the prison system, and that's why they like Tom Homan is talking about setting up a facility inside of Rikers in New York because they want to just like quickly, expeditiously deport any undocumented migrants. But yes, in the short term, I advocate mostly for modest social democratic proposals.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, it practically in terms of domestic policy sounds like we're like practically on like the same side, and whatnot. Obviously, like that's why like we pretty much agree in terms of all like the policies and the people that we support and stuff. But I feel like a lot of leftists get really focused on like everyone agreeing on like those like sort of, I don't want to call them fringe economically related issues, but they're like, it's really like definitions and stuff. It's not like we don't pragmatically just in the time period the same for the same thing.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the reasons for why I advocate for these things might be a little different than yours. Aside from like genuinely improving people's lives, and this is another thing that I'm not like secretive about, but I see a noticeable lack of class consciousness in the American working class in general. There is tremendous class consciousness for capital owners, whether they even recognize it or not, and they don't even need to have class consciousness because the system is structured to benefit their needs regardless, and to continue their position as generating engaging in capital accumulation. The entire system is designed in that way, but the reasons as to why I think it's important to be able to do this is because I want labor unions and labor militancy to at least exist in this country so that there's a valid mechanism of pushback against politicians on the Republican side of the spectrum, certainly, but even on the Democratic side as well, because I think without, like, there's never been a moment throughout American history or history at all where concessions were given to the working class, whether it be the fucking weekends or whether it be paid leave or any of those things, or the abolition of child labor, without real labor militancy. That has simply never happened. And the same goes for social struggles as well. Same goes for civil rights. Like, militancy is an absolute necessity. And I see the American working class as completely removed from that conversation, where they just understandably see themselves as powerless in this structure. And I think that breeds resentment, hostility, and it creates, paired up with the economic volatility that many Americans experience, that creates a perfect ground for right-wing reactionary fascist movements to grow. And that's what we're seeing in America.
Mm-hmm. I think I agree with that. So I'm not as educated on economics as Parker is. But what I will say is seemingly that's compatible with like a social democrat model to like advocate for more class consciousness, to like, get, more social reform, better programs for individuals and like, the low middle class, and, create economic policy in which centers the average citizen or constituent of a country compared to, those who have the most money. But I will say, maybe the more we advocate for class consciousness, the more I educate myself on, like this paradigm of conflicts between, classes of wealth and how to effectively resolve them. Maybe that just naturally leads you down this pathway of becoming just completely radicalized socialists,
But I don't think I joke and I say like, yeah, I have radical beliefs, but like, I mean, what's the saying?
I'm sorry, that was a play on words. I was joking too.
No. It's by no measure of mental wellness to be well adjusted to a completely insane society. Like, think about it that way, where advocacy for socialized medicine is seen as a bridge too far for many Americans who are so heavily propagandized, no matter how brilliant they fancy themselves to be. The independent thinkers who think that like social medicine means like, oh, we're going to do Venezuela style rat eating in America or whatever the fuck, right? So like, I wouldn't necessarily say it's radicalization, more so an evolution. by recognizing the understandable contradictions that are baked into capitalism, because capitalism was an advancement from the previous mode of commodity production for sure. But most of even what Marx talks about in terms of capitalism is not necessarily, attacking capitalism at all, but instead simply describing capitalism with dialectics, like through the assessment of, and you might think it's a little bit reductive at this point, but like through an assessment of like capital accumulators, the capital owners, the bourgeoisie, and the workers that are wage laborers in general, the proletariat. So that's just, it's more so a description of how things are, and not necessarily like moralizing a certain position that like, workers are always good, or they always do the right things, or anything like that. There's no good bad dynamics there at all. And instead it's just about describing how capital is accumulated.
Dean just got hit with a.
I'm having some
missile.
technical difficulties.
Yeah, hit with technical.
Got hit with a
difficulties.
meteor, dude.
Yeah, I guess my thoughts
I don't
on
understand how glorious Xi Jinping's application TikTok would do this right as I'm talking about abolishing the commodity form.
He's gone. He's getting banned.
yeah, I guess where I'm coming from, and I'm coming from someone who used to be a socialist myself for a pretty long time, and I actually started my whole content creation like creating like leftist and socialist content, is that like a lot of these issues that exist, I think, can be solved with social democracy. And a lot of people say that there's like issues with social democracy. It starts to corrupt. People start to fight and advocate against it. But I don't think that's a critique against social democracy in of itself. I think that just means that you just need to maintain social democracy in the same type of way like we maintain our democracy.
Well, man,
feel like
real social democracy hasn't been tried.
Well, I mean, like we could say that like we don't think that this real certain form has been tried, and I think that that's cool, but like my argument would then be is that we'd have to try it on smaller levels to be able to see whether or not it works on a larger form in order to be able to say that like it's actually effective. I don't think we'd be able to say that we should adopt it on some sort of globalized production model if it is the case that we don't have any type of level of actual probabilistic means of demonstrating how likely it is that it's going to be beneficial for workers or for people, because we could actually like hurt some of our concerns like, oh, quality of life for workers, if we don't take that into account when we're like applying these sorts of systems, if we don't know what the empirical effect is of these different types of theoretical models. Not to say that theoretical models can't be then used or seen to be effective later on, but it's like we just need evidence to indicate that these particular models are effective before we establish it on such a pragmatic basis worldwide, is what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, we're not getting there anytime soon anyway. I'm not saying like tomorrow with a magic wand we are going to dissolve the class structure and live in a moneyless, classless, stateless society.
Yeah, my thoughts even then, like, would even a stateless society be like desirable in the future? Like, even if we hit like full automation. Sorry, I don't want to like full on socialist debate you, but like, even if we hit full automation, like, would it even be desirable for us to get rid of that? Like, because we still want a state to like limit people from committing crimes, right?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I'm not a communist, so I think that like I can't even imagine what that would look like in general. But the way I explain it is like I'm not opposed to it. I wouldn't say I'm a communist, but I wouldn't say that I'm opposed to a stateless, moneyless society, a borderless society.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Would you be against like the enforcement of certain types of laws? Like once we meet that society, I feel like in a communist society, there's no government that would enforce laws against like pedophilia. I feel like that would be true, right?
No, yes, obviously. That's why I'm saying I'm not a communist, but if society evolved in a way where we're talking so far out there, like we're now talking about theoretically what it would look like, right? We're basically fantasizing about a world that is from where I'm standing impossible to imagine. But I think like the argument, I guess, would be that one, obviously most crime in general, with the exception of like antisocial personality disorder related crimes, are like psychopathy or sociopathy, like things like that. Crimes born out of crimes that might be born out of like mental problems. And not to say that like people with mental health issues are criminals or whatever. I'm not saying that at all. But with the exception of those, like most crime is done because of financial circumstances, like your material conditions create a likelihood for you to go out and do crime. And I think the argument there is that like in that structure, it's already all of your needs are addressed anyway. So the only remaining crime would possibly be, like you said, pedophilia, which I guess at that stage, medical advancements would have found a solution for that as well. Like I'm assuming that's what it would look like if I were to envision a communist society. So the concept of crime in and of itself would be entirely destroyed, considering that the overwhelming majority of crime is born out of material conditions.
I mean, you can also just appeal to some libertarian enforcement mechanism, right? Don't forget those. Don't forget those collectives, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a libertarian by any means. So, and that's part. Like, I'm a state enjoyer. I often, especially in this past month, I've been talking quite a bit about how we should have 1 million more government employees. I think it's fucking ridiculous that we're trying to cut government employees rather than hire more people for the government. I think that's that's one of the biggest problems in America is that we don't have enough people doing jobs in general. Any area, like I'll give you the TSA as an example. I flew into Salt Lake City for the day to shoot a podcast with my co-host who has escaped to Utah. Okay, and it was fucking annoying. I was waiting in line, and I was waiting in line for a fucking hour. Okay, it sucked. And back in the day, I used to be like, man, fuck these guys. Like, these guys suck at their jobs. They're just like sitting around twiddling their thumbs, not doing a good job. Now I'm woke. I realize that it's not because of the individual employee that's like handling this insane amount of demand. It's that somewhere along the line, someone decided that we're going to need to do budget cuts and that we're not going to be able to open up the extra lines, right? Because we don't want to...
Like 30 to 45 days, I'll check my Twitter DMs, and I'll see a new DM from you saying, pop out to LA and come on the show. And, it's just been so funny because it's been happening for like 6 months. And at this point, I think it's hilarious. I'm no offense.
I told you, next time you're in LA, hit me up. But you were like, "Oh, I'll come to LA even just for that alone." I was like,
"Yeah,
well,
bro, I'll pop on just for that."
I felt like that was too much pressure. I don't know where you live, but that's like.
It's not. Don't worry. I live in LA, so he'll come out and see me too.
Yeah, I got a $65 flight one way to LA from my local airport.
Hell yeah! What do you guys think about Jubilee, straight arrow news? That's my biggest gripe with Jubilee.
Oh my god, I hate their fact checking so much. It's the worst ever. Also, like I think what they did with Michael Knowles here recently was pretty negligent on their behalf.
Straight Arrow News that presents itself as an impartial news outlet, like a fact checker, is actually owned by a fucking billionaire dude. I forget what his name is. Hold on, let me look this up real quick.
That's actually a crazy issue, man. I was literally on stream like bitching. I was like, I don't know if I'm tripping, but these fact checks are trash.
Are horrible.
Like,
I know, right?
I thought I was being dumb. I was like,
so the fact checks are right leaning.
Bro, the fact,
totally are.
And
okay,
they're always missing like incredibly important context. So they almost are purposely misleading. It's odd.
I think those are ad reads almost. I almost think that they're ad reads.
It's weird.
So if you go on their website, the first thing that comes up on the commentary side is Dr. Frank Luntz. Do you guys know who that is?
Where do I know the name?
Oh yeah,
that name sounds familiar.
He is a right-wing pollster, very famous right-wing pollster, and wears the ugliest toupee of all time, and also is responsible for, I don't know if you guys watched Vice, Adam McKay's movie Vice about Dick Cheney, but there's an entire segment dedicated to him. He's responsible for things like coming up with new ways of selling the Bush-Cheney administration's like insane proposals, like death tax, idea that it used to be called estate tax, but now it's called death tax because of the likes of Frank Luntz. But beyond Frank Luntz, the entire thing is owned by. I'm trying to figure out the name of the guy who owns it. Like, not on the advisory board. If you look at their advisory board on the website, you'll find out that there's like a bunch of right-wing people on there. But like, oh, Joe Ricketts, that's the guy. Joe Ricketts is the CEO and founder of Straight Arrow News. He is also I think he's a TD Ameritrade. Yeah, he founded the company that later became TD Ameritrade, a securities industry leader that empowers self-directed investors with powerful and innovative investment tools and training. TD Ameritrade was acquired by Charles Schwab Corporation in November of 2019. Now, when you look up Joe Ricketts, however, on Wikipedia, you find out a little bit more about little old Joe Ricketts' political perspectives. Aside from the fact that he's obviously a fucking billionaire, so he's,
Dude owns the Chicago Cubs. I don't know that.
Yeah, he's not going to have great opinions in general, being a billionaire. But then you look up, his anti-Muslim and racist email controversy.
Oh God, Jesus Christ!
And you find out that Splinter News in February 5th, 2019, released a cache of Ricketts' emails from 2009 to 2014. He wrote that Islam could not create a civil society, that we cannot ever let Islam become a large part of our society, and that Muslims are naturally in parentheses, our enemy. Included were Obama citizenship conspiracy theory emails and claims that Obama favored Islam over other religions. Included were multiple racist joke emails that he received and responded to positively, including slurs against black and Hispanic people. He apologized for the emails after they were made public.
And this is the company that does the fact checking on
Totally not biased at all.
That's actually kind of crazy.
My thoughts are, and I've kind of gathered these thoughts just from the 2 episodes I shot, is that all of their production team is all very liberal, libbed out in like the best way possible. Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
But then all of their post-production, are like some incel 34-year-old men that lean so far right. It's unhealthy, right? And that's kind of the dynamic that I've seen, because everybody in production, super liberal, super cool, super fun to work with, and honestly, pretty great people from my experience.
Yep.
But then, the moment it goes to posts, that's when it gets a little bit tricky. And then one other small thing that I noticed was for the episode that I filmed, this one woke teen versus 20 Trump supporters, I had no control over what happened with the content that was filmed. It was sent to their post team and it was put live on YouTube. But something I noticed was that when Ben Shapiro did his episode, they gave him and his team full editorial control over what parts of it went live and what parts of it
number
didn't.
above my head.
Oh, it's like people are giving you like
gifts. You have
this on,
You've almost made $200.
Yeah, so that number above your head is $200.
Yeah.
Bro, why are you guys giving money to a millionaire? What the fuck's wrong with you?
That's crazy.
That's good. That's crazy.
Did you just do a money spread on a TikTok?
God.
Stream?
Wow.
Are you
I
serious?
don't know how to collect this money. I don't know how to. I don't think I get paid off TikTok.
Yeah, bro, we gotta.
Well, you can always take that money and you can like send it somewhere.
You could.
Wait, can I use it on the TikTok shop? TikTok
Yeah,
shop?
you can.
You could use it.
You can actually send it to people. Like if you see someone on your TikTok feed and like you see someone that you like, you can just send them money if like they might need it or something. Like you can convert them into stuff that you can send people.
Like, am I live right now on my TikTok?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't
people can
know
see
if
that.
it's-
Yeah.
I don't know. Like
It's not like a host, but it's like they can see the
It's
notification.
like if they scroll past like your video, your profile shows up differently and says you're live.
Oh shit! So wait, so it doesn't show up on the For You page as me?
No, it does do that too. It does do that too. It's just
We're
saying
also- we're
it doesn't
also-
like I don't know. It's like
We're
kinda
also
different.
only on my second account right now, so this isn't even my main TikTok. This is just where I come out to hang out and shoot the shit.
Yeah, Hasan, you could cash those out, donate them to the DNC, and then it's funnnealed back to Harry and I. So you can
Yeah,
support
yeah,
it,
yeah.
small.
Yeah, there you go.
No, but seriously,
Seriously.
if you're just like literally fucking around
Nice,
with
Chris.
TikTok, what you should do is
I'm hilarious. I'm fucking
obviously you're like predisposed to an algorithm of like debate content because
Oh,
you
for
were able
one.
to find this. Just go find some some leftists that you fuck with that you think are spreading a good message, and show them some love.
Bro, this is
Like Chris.
Like, yo, give me the money spread.
All right, Hasan, it was a pleasure, bro. Thanks for
Very
popping
nice
in.
to meet you.
One moment, Hasan. It was a pleasure to finally meet you and speak to you in person. I'm gonna finish that content, Nuke, and I'll see if I have any critiques for you, and I'll let you know the next time
can
I'm
go
in
over
LA,
it.
and we could go over it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Peace,
Bye,
guys.
Hasan.
All right, man. Be
Nice
safe.
meeting you, man.
Please, man.
See you, Hasan.
Yeah, chill.
Does he know how to leave?
Yo, dude, that was
That's what
crazy.
you're trying to be like. He said he got on the
was
coin. He
crazy
said he got on the
work.
coins. I'm just saying.
Come on, Chris.
Chris calling Hasan
Bro.
a boomer, like.
Yeah,
called
actually
himself
calling
a
us
boomer,
on a
Chris.
boomer is crazy.
He
That's
called himself a
diabolical.
boomer. He was like,
Yeah,
one
I
of
was
these.
so late to this.
I know, but that's himself, dude.
Yeah.
That's
I just
himself.
want to
That's
say
not
also.
you.
I just want to say also, out of everybody here, it is a miracle of some god out there that I'm even on this live, because I'm
Wrong.
like compared
Come on,
to
Matt, we
all
love you,
no,
brother.
I'm serious. Compared to all of you, I'm a fucking
No, Matt. No, Matt. You're the goat, brother.
we love you.
You're the
We
goat,
love you,
I'm
Matt.
Well, you want to know?
Wrong.
Wrong.
You want to know?
Royalty.
You want to know what was fucking crazy? Is there's 9,000 people in here. I'm gonna tell you all how we even got to the point.
Yeah,
of
this is
having Hasan
actually
up
like
on
an
the live.
insane, like,
So
yeah.
I go live on here because I'm pissed off, and I just had the worst debate of my life with some random idiot on the main account. I got banned for bullying him. I absolutely bullied his ass. And then I come on here and I just start gossiping, right? I'm bringing up all this TikTok drama. We're talking about the Bop House. We're talking about Astrovan.
Yeah, dude,
but then one of the topics that we get around to
I'm literally playing Fortnite on Twitch.
is Hasan and H3. And I'm like, so I was reacting to this content, Nuke, right? And next thing I know, everybody thinks I hate Hasan and love Ethan. and then I see people in the chat and they're like, Hasan's in here. And I'm like, you guys are tripping. I check the queue and then Hasan's at the top.
You can
Dude,
summon
bring him
him.
up.
That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, dude, we were literally, it was like 2.5K people, and Dean and I, like, Dean was talking about like Sophie Rain, the Bop House, and then we started talking about Bad Baby, and then we were like discussing in detail like the Daniel Larson lore. And